Welcome back to the NWR Virtual Healthcare Conference for 2025. Our next presentation is from CurveBeam AI with the ticker CVB, and we're joined by the CEO, Greg Brown, who's coming to us from the US on this occasion. CurveBeam AI develops, manufactures and sells specialised medical imaging CT scanners, coupled with AI SaaS-based clinical assessment solutions to support medical practitioners in the management of musculoskeletal conditions. A reminder to the audience, as usual, please, if you have a question, submit it using the Q&A panel within Zoom, and we'll get to those at the end. But I'll hand it over to Greg for the presentation first.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody for joining the presentation on CurveBeam AI. CurveBeam is a medical device company, and we're very focused on delivering a CT, point-of-care CT image to a surgeon's office. We can cover a hospital, we can cover an imaging chain, but we are really focused on delivering point-of-care in a surgeon's office, the ability to do CT scanning. And just like when you go to a dentist and you can have a maxillofacial scan, we're applying that same technology, but delivering this in orthopedics to give point-of-care scanning to improve workflow in those surgical settings. Now, in addition to delivering that point-of-care imaging, we are also delivering functional CT, and we're doing that with weight-bearing CT. So we're giving that image of a patient that is bilateral under their natural weight and looking at what is happening in the joints to better diagnose the conditions and to then better plan the surgical interventions to restore that function. So we have this truly first-to-market position with bilateral weight-bearing CT that we can deliver to a surgeon's office, a hospital, or an imaging centre or a group of imaging centres. It's really designed in helping to diagnose conditions, plan their surgery, and deliver them custom cut guides for their surgery. So this is a market, and we have both the functional standing capability of our high-rise, and this is a patient in a standing position. It's bilateral weight-bearing. And then we can also flip the gantry and offer non-weight-bearing CT. So that too has an awful lot of diagnostic information that can be revealed looking at both a joint underweight and not underweight. So you have both capabilities, but we're very, very focused on the functional CT of weight-bearing CT in that point-of-care setting. We see there's about a $10 billion market opportunity in the instrument placements alone, and we see around a $2.7 billion opportunity in some of the SaaS models that we can place on this footprint of this imaging platform. And some ideas here would, just in bone segmentation and separation, we can have deep learning AI programs do all that bone segmentation and separation in the foot, which is quite a challenge. It can be done, offered within 20 minutes, a fully analysed, segmented bones of the foot with all the anatomical measurements to help in diagnosis. And that's a standard objective result that they get from that AI. So they're just some of the type of value adds that we can deliver on the platform. The other big one is, of course, bone density testing, because if you're going to be putting an implant into a patient's bone, you want to know about the quality of the bone. If you've got an osteoporotic patient, you want to know that you're putting an implant into that bone. So that's another part of the value proposition where we've used deep learning AI to automate all the steps for doing a BMD so that that can be real time in their surgical planning. So we have our regulatory clearances on our platform, which are through. We have TGA, CE, and FDA. The enhanced high-rise received its clearance in July last year, and we're now targeting our FDA submissions on our BMD product for mid this year. Now, our business model, we have twofold business model. We have the instrument sale, and we target around about a 50% gross profit, and then we look to establish an annuity stream annually off these placements, targeting around the 350,000 in BMD SaaS model. From a business reimbursement position to support that placement of a device and for supporting a SaaS model, we have favourable reimbursement, not only in the CT scan reimbursement for the doctor, but also for the BMD in a group surgeon setting that doesn't have access to DEXA. There's a favourable reimbursement for knee and hip patient in that setting. Both are under national coverage determinations, and both have, the majors also covering under policy. We have global distribution now. Stryker is our partner in the US with foot and ankle, and we also have a partnership now that's expanded to Australia with Stryker as well. A number of key opinion leader sites are now using the device from, Mayo, all 3 sites, Penn, Duke, Harvard, HSS. We have a number of high-profile sites that now use our device in clinical settings. So what's the benefit of this point of care? Just like when you go to the dentist, if you go for a surgery today, you've got a sore knee, you've got a sore hip, or a problem with your foot and ankle. The offices today, and this is outside of Australia, but a lot of these group surgeon settings already have the ability to do X-ray in their office. For a CT, they have to refer out. So that means a patient comes in, does their first visit. They might get an X-ray, but then they'll be referred out for their CT. That patient will come back in a couple of days, sometimes a week. Then they will have the CT available to diagnose the condition, and then send that CT away for getting their custom cut guides for their robotic systems and their augmented reality guidance systems for assisting in their surgery. Now, that really creates a bottleneck. It's a pain point, because then you've got to get the CT scans back to the doctor. It really does create a bottleneck. So what HighRise delivers as a market first is functional CT, so the ability to better diagnose, better plan your surgery. But the customer comes ill, the patient comes in, the image is taken by physician assistant, nursing practitioner. They can walk in with their CT image to the surgeon. Now that really helps workflow. They're diagnosing and they're ready to upload to get their custom cut guides to plan the surgery, all in one visit, one scan. Now, when we get our BMD module FDA cleared, they will also be able to do their bone quality assessment all in that one visit, one scan. So today, if they want to go the second step of looking at bone quality, that's referring out to another center with another different device, a DEXA device, and that can take, in the US, anywhere from 1 to 3 month waiting list now on DEXA. So this would bring it all into a very nice workflow solution. It's on a lower radiation dose to the patient, and it generates revenue for the surgeon, both for the CT scan and the potential for the BMD in the group surgeon setting for knee and hip patients. So this is where this device, as a true functional CT, bilateral weight bearing, really improves that workflow. It improves the radiation exposure to the patient, and it generates significant revenue to the surgeon. And we will continue to overlay these AI solutions on SaaS-based models, either discrete or under subscription agreements. So this is just one example. You've got 26 bones in each foot. These models, often for diagnosing some of the complex foot and ankle disorders, they have to sit there for 2 hours and segment that image. And one surgeon can do a different segmentation to another surgeon, or radiologist to another radiologist. With our deep learning AI, we take that and we automate that, giving them a standardized objective metric, and then we can lay down on that the anatomical measurements for helping diagnose a condition. Now, why is weight bearing important? Look, I could show you a knee, I could show you a hip, where the planning in the surgery can have a big impact in the outcome. In this case, I'm just using an ankle as an example. A non-weight bearing CT scan, this is showing a pretty healthy joint. You've got a good space in the joint. It looks well aligned. But as soon as you put that joint underweight, you see exactly the impingement point. You also see that the whole joint is valgus, so it's being pushed out, not pushed in or pushed forward or backwards. you know exactly that alignment of distribution of the weight with that pathology. And that can help you better align your surgery for how you keep that weight distribution even. And the fact that you have the full bilateral capability allows us in the future that you can plan a knee surgery and ensure that you're not creating an issue on the contralateral limb or downstream or upstream from that implant by not having the right heights, the right weight distribution in your surgery for that restoration of function. So this bilateral capability is really going to improve the ability to have an alignment through the lower skeleton of that weight distribution post the intervention of an implant. So today we're very focused on the group surgeon setting. This is a big focus for our partner in the US as well. These are often associated with the ambulatory surgical centers. And these group surgeon practices, there's around 5,800 in the US. And we're targeting all 2 surgeon plus practices. In the hospital setting, we go for all the majors. These are just examples of all the key top tier KOL sites that we already have devices placed. And of course, we also work with the imaging chains. And to a large extent in Australia, where it can't be done in the surgeon's office, it's got to be done through the radiology. We work with imaging chains and hospitals, but ex-Australia, it's really directly into that group surgeon setting. Now, our partner is the foot and ankle division of Stryker US. They have 500 reps, 40 regional specialists. And today, this was set up on their prophecy. And the prophecy is a custom cut guide for a total ankle. So a patient can walk in, get the scan. The scan is then available for their cut guide for planning their surgery. And it can all be done in one visit, one scan. And it's a very elegant solution from a workflow perspective and a revenue perspective in foot and ankle. Our partner also has a robotic system. There are a number of surgical aided robotic systems out there that can all benefit from a CT pre-surgical plan. And we've found that with the foot and ankle division, we've had a headwind in placing devices purely based on the fact that we don't have the custom cut guides for surgical systems in place at this point. Now, that should be available, and we're targeting the end of this quarter. The enhanced high-rise was a total new project enhancement of the high-rise to be able to deal with the knee and hip capability for doing the surgical planning for the aided surgical systems. And that's both for augmented reality and for robotics. And we enhanced the high-rise, we increased the energy source so that we could hit the landmarks on the larger patients. That device got its FDA clearance in July. We've been working through a validation process. And at this point, the enhanced high-rise validation, all the patient scans that were part of that program, which were the matched MDCT scans, have been successfully processed. And the documentation is now with the vendor regulatory awaiting a decision. And we would, hope to see a decision there within the next, 10 days. So that's where we stand on the validation for a robotic system. We are also working with numerous other companies in validating their surgical systems, whether it be augmented reality or, robotic aided surgery, from Conformis to Medacta to Micropore, Think Surgical, any system that could benefit from a CT pre-plan. We are working with all companies to help in that endeavor. So the payback on a device at this point is around 18 months based on the lowest reimbursement that you can find in Medicare, not including the privates. The private insurers, the average reimbursement is about $240 for a foot and ankle user. You're really looking at an average, the worst average that you could do through just Medicare would be around $140 a scan. Working on that at 10 scans a day, then the device has a payback within 18 months from your existing reimbursement position. So there is favourable reimbursement in place. It's under an NCD, and you're looking at about 10 scans per day is, there's a payback within 18 months for that outlay of around, $410,000 US. So those two business models that we're focusing on, you've got your instrument model, it's a one-off, it's a 50% targeted GP. You then have an ongoing trailing revenue stream of about 10%. That's for the service agreement. Now, that's under this Category 1 CPT code, under this National Coverage Determination, and you also have policies available from the major privates and the Blues. Now, on that, that's for the single placement of the device. Once a device is placed, if you look at the number of patients seen in a group setting, surgical setting in the US, what you see is that, beyond 2 to 3 surgeons, up to 6 and greater, and there's a number of practices that can have up to 60 or 80 surgeons, what you start to see is that even at around that 5 mark, you're seeing between 76 to 100 patients. Now, on an average, your average is going to be over 100 patients a day for a group surgeon setting. So that's a significant workflow of patients. So getting your 10 scans for your payback, it's there. But if you are now doing your surgical planning and it's a knee and hip scenario where you need to do a BMD, then 25 scans a day is possible. Now, we use a target of between 5 and 15, so say 10 BMDs a day. That can represent an annuity of around 350,000 Australian dollars per placement on a high rise. And at this point, we're very focused in looking at that capability of establishing that SaaS annuity off each placement for high rise. And we have been changing that business model to include MDCT as well, to increase that access for that SaaS annuity in the hospital setting for inpatients that may have a fracture. We're getting good growth and trending on growth on our core product quarter on quarter. We remain confident in our pipeline for the rest of this fiscal year. And we're seeing some good contributions from the high rise now in the US, and this is what we reported in the last 4C. When we talk about a custom cut guide, I always feel it's good to show a visual of what it is you validate. So you need a 3D image for these surgical plans to understand what cuts need to be made in the bone to accept these implants. And they need to be precise. And the more precise they are, the quicker the rehabilitation for the patient. So these 3D images can look and see what damaged bone is involved, or for an osteotomy, they can do some very precise cuts with these robots. So having this 3D image, this is how these cut guides can be calculated off that 3D image and then placed into a robot so that the surgery can be done very accurately to the angle and to the precision that a robotic-assisted system can deliver that can improve recuperation times around this surgery. So these are the things that we're looking to validate on the high rise for the robotic systems. And robotics would represent around 20 to 25% of surgeries today. And so it's a significant and one of the fastest growing areas in implants, and why this is an important functionality that we needed for the high rise, and the enhanced high rise has that capability. Now, we have global distribution. We work through partners in Australia now and in the US with Stryker US. We have direct capabilities in Europe, and the rest is distribution relationships. So in closing, the next generation of this platform will be the SkyRise, which will give complete supine CT imaging in the office, as well as right up to the cervical spine and shoulder. And that will be the next generation product that we are looking to develop. So on that note, I'll pass it back to Matt for questions.
Thanks very much, Greg. As you've mentioned there, we'll take some questions. So again, for those in the audience, if you would like to submit a question, type it in using the Q&A panel on Zoom. Greg, the first one I have is, can you explain in more detail the delay in bone mineral density, or BMD, and what impact this has on building SaaS revenue?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the last 4C, we we did a Q sub with FDA. We changed the strategy on the BMD. Instead of going high rise first, we went MDCT first. And the reason for that is that there's plenty of MDCTs that are done for surgical planning today, and we can collect those scans quickly and build the substantial equivalence data that we need in 3 sites across different centers in the US, and meet the ethnicity requirements to get that FDA clearance. One of the outcomes from that Q sub, by changing the strategy to MDCT, they would like to see 25% of those patients with a BMD result done by a dual energy X-ray system. That's creating the delay, and hence why we've had to push out our filing to middle of this year. Now, it has a benefit in the fact that that delay now introduces the ability to do an MDCT scan and the high-rise scan as the second step of the regulatory. So you get your 510K clearance for our BMD SaaS model off an MDCT first, and then you do a special 510K for the extension onto the high-rise. By having the MDCT, we're not beholden to the number of high-rise for building that annuity quickly. That's going to take time to build the high-rise footprint in foot and ankle, in knee and hip accounts in that group surgeon setting. So if we've got 40 today, to get to 100, that's where that footprint is limiting your ability to build that BMD. If we get to 1,000, then it really has a major annuity impact. So by doing MDCT, you can go straight to the hospital market for the inpatient fracture patients. So a patient comes in, long-term care facility, nursing home, assisted living, they've got a hip fracture, a femur fracture, a pelvic fracture. There in that setting, they need a BMD urgently to be able to manage that patient and get the appropriate payment for that patient by showing the comorbidity. And in that setting, we feel that if by doing the MDCT first, we open up that annuity straight away to 3,000 to 5,000 targets in the US market. So under that MSDRG program, we feel that that really opens up our ability to deliver annuities far quicker than just on high rise. So the strategy change, while it has created a delay, it does mean that we pick it up on the other side on how quickly we hope to be able to build our annuity, because we have now access to the inpatient as well as the outpatient setting of a group surgeon setting through the high rise. So by doing both, we maximize our chances of improving that revenue stream from SaaS. So that's why the delay. That's where we made the change from high rise first, coming back to MDCT first, and then using our device as the predicate and validating another new CT for that clearance that we would have from MDCT. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's very comprehensive. And you mentioned annuity streams in there, but on that front, what annuity streams can the company build off the high rise beyond the BMD?
I showed that model here. So a lot of conditions require bone segmentation and separation, and it's done manually, and it can take a surgeon up to 2 hours to do that manually, or a radiologist 2 hours to do that manually. And you're going to get variation between operator to operator. By using deep learning AI to do all that bone segmentation and separation, and then overlay and do the anatomical measurements automatically and the angles, you've got now a standardized objective metric that anyone can get based on that AI model. That's another very powerful annuity stream that we'll be able to build. That's the Autometrics program. We also have an Axiometrics program, which aligns the whole lower skeleton so that you've got the weight distribution remaining post the surgical intervention as it was previously. So you want that weight distribution through evenly. So you've got Autometrics for bone segmentation and separation. It can be foot and ankle, it can be knee, it can be hip, it can be spine, it can be shoulder. You've got Axiometrics, which is that lower alignment. And then we have other microstructural SAS solutions coming through as well. So there's a lot more beyond the BMD. BMD is just an incumbent standard that's available. It's well reimbursed. So it's the quickest way to drive your model. These other platforms, I think, deliver huge time savings, and we'll be able to put them in on subscription agreements that may not have favorable reimbursement initially, but the time savings are there that allows us to put it in as a subscription agreement, quarterly or annual basis.
Thank you. The question is, when do you think your Stryker Australia agreement might impact revenue?
We signed that in January, and they've been very active. At this point, I would envisage that we could see some impact from that agreement by Q1 of next fiscal year or Q3 of this calendar year.
Thank you. Next question is, are you only focused on one vendor robot for high-rise, or do you have multiple other suppliers being targeted for high-rise CT surgical planning?
We're very focused on one vendor because of the success of that vendor with their robot. It's the dominant robot. But we also work with the other majors. So if you look at what other majors can take a CT or are set up to be able to accept a CT, everything from Think Surgical, the Smith & Nephew Chorus or Corey, that also can take a CT, Conformis, Medacta, Micropore, the Skywalker. We're in discussions with all of them. Globus have a knee device, a robotics system now. We're in contact with them. So we are committing to validate our data sets on all robotic and augmented reality systems as well. We work with the Arvis. We work with a number of companies where we're in discussions around validating our CT for their surgical cut guides for either their robotic system or their augmented reality system. And these augmented reality systems are the ones where they put on the device on the head, they project down, and then there's an overlay of their cut guide on the patient's leg, so it can guide their surgery. So all of these can benefit from a pre-plan utilizing a 3D CT, and we are actively involved with a number of those companies.
Thanks, Greg. We've just got time for one more. So a question around the broader landscape and competition. What else is out there when it comes to weight-bearing CT?
Look, today, really, the competitor that we've had for some time is the PlanMed Verity. This is this product. This is a Verity, and it's unilateral. So it only does one limb at a time. It's not natural bilateral weight bearing. This is what they have FDA, CE, and TGA approved. Now, they have a full body device that they're working on for standing, but it will only come out for hip, and we don't envisage seeing that standing device for another year or two. But this is what they have cleared today. And if you're a 70-year-old patient, you've got a sore knee, you've got a sore hip, and there's going to be a lot of pain with these different pathologies, that if you've got to stand over the CT ring, you're 70 years of age, you're lifting one leg into the middle, and that's the leg where you've got a lot of pain. Now you've got to use these two bars to pull your whole weight onto that affected limb. It's already painful under bilateral standing, but you're now putting all your weight on that limb. And then you need to stand still. This device can only do the ankle, can only do partial foot. So it can do the ankle and the knee. Now, while all that weight's on that affected knee, that CT scanner will come up and the center of that panel has to reach your knee, just above your knee. So your other limb sits on the CT ring. So that CT ring is going to come right up. So it's quite a challenge to do the knee. Number one, it's unilateral. It's not natural weight bearing. It's quite difficult for the elderly to do this versus a high rise, open the gate, walk on, hold the handles. That's really the competitor we have today in weight bearing CT. And it's really unilateral. They have a future product that's coming out that's, whole body standing. And we have our own development program around a whole body standing as well, but very much tailored to the solution in that group surgeon setting where height restrictions are a big problem. So we've really got a first to market opportunity. I think a lot of the IP around our solutions, I didn't see the imaging as 50% of the solution. I see where the franchise is really built is on those AI overlays and clinical data turned into information to better plan their surgeries and manage their patients. That's where I think the real value lies. It's also where all the IP protection is. And it's a very good defense of that franchise that we can build from that footprint. We see that, being the pioneers in foot and ankle, now going to knee and hip, and then we'll go to spine and shoulder, really puts us in a good position.
Very good. Thank you, Greg, for your time today in the presentation and to those in the audience. But it sounds like busy rest of the year ahead for CurveBeam.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
Next up, as part of the conference, we have Cyclopharm. It will be on about 7 minutes from now, so I hope you can join us there. Thank you.